This meeting is being recorded. Okay, perfect. Let me find my slides here. Can I share screen? Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday, another snow day, it seems. At least it's not as crazy as the one from a few weeks ago. So sure, everybody's going to be just fine and be able to manage. We're going to go through talking about navigating bidding wars and preemptive offers, setting offer dates, best practices, whether you're a seller, whether you're a buyer, things to look out for, and um, best practices in general. If you guys have any questions as we go along, please do let me know, and we will discuss and we will navigate together. So let's get started. So average price of a Toronto condo is now about $740,000, which is probably up about $100,000 from pre-COVID numbers. And I've always said in the past, well, in the beginning of COVID, I said, pay attention to condos. Condos are going to be where the opportunities will probably be for investors that are just starting out, for first-time home buyers, because now, the average townhouse in the GTA is over $1 million, which from a capital perspective makes a big difference, because anything you buy in Ontario that's over that's over $1 million, you have to put 20% down. So, if you're looking at, best use of capital, the best way to maximize it, that leaves you really with a window of opportunity in the condo market. So pay attention to that, because there's great opportunities, especially 416 condos. 905 condos have really performed really well over the course of the pandemic. So condos in Pickering, Mississauga, Brampton, Hamilton, Burlington, those areas have really performed well for condos. My personal philosophy with condos is, the further away you move from the city, you should buy land. The closer you are to the city, you should buy condos. But with COVID, a lot of stuff has just completely changed. So, but what's created is, it's created an opportunity in overreacted to what's been happening with COVID. Other news, GTA home prices are still forecasted to do 11%. So despite the scare of interest rates, we know supply, the main driving factor of, the events that we're seeing in the market, as well as low rates. So rates being held, as the announcement was done, I think a week ago, showing that rates are going to be held. It's going to create a frenzy, at least for the first half of the year. It's going to create a frenzy for the first half of the year for individuals wanting to buy, securing rates before the market, before the Bank of Canada does whatever they need to do. So, we all know this because we hear this stuff every single day. So, but I just wanted to kind of just highlight that these are still the main factors. And, with condos, there is a great opportunities. There is a great opportunity. So do not sleep on condos at this moment. So we're going to talk about bidding wars, because everything that you're going to most likely look at on MLS, whether it's condos, whether it's houses, whether it's
Mike,
detached or
we're losing
whatnot,
your audio a little
most
bit.
likely. I'm even seeing assignment sales having offer dates attached to it. Are you? Okay, hold on. Give me a second. Whoops. Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not going on my pods. Give me a second.
We can hear you though.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so you know what? Let me just go into. Let me just put the this away because it's not connecting to my computer. Okay, so we're going to talk about best practices for you to do. We're going to talk about best practices for you to look at before putting something in an offer date, and why you would want to put something in an offer date. So before you list, it's very important that you do your homework. And what that means is you do your homework across all the categories. Because just because there's bidding wars on townhouses and houses, in the area that you're listing the property, there might not necessarily be bidding wars. And it's very important. What I like to do is I like to look at recent sales. So if I'm selling stacked towns or townhouses, or I'm selling detached houses, I want to look at the recent sales over the last 30 days to see what are other agents doing and why are they doing it that way. And I also want to be able to see what kind of results are they getting. How many days on the market are they staying? Are these listings staying on the market? How long are the offer dates? Are the offer dates over 6 days? Are they over 10 days? And why are they, you know, and what's the advantage and disadvantage of having such a long offer date that is maybe 6 days versus one that's 10 days. You also want to look at the list to sell this. Houses typically sell about $200,000 or more above what the list price is. So typically it's good. What you would want to do is kind of reverse engineer. So if you have a house that's going on the market, I have one that will be going on the market. Our target price is 1.5. So what we're going to do is we're going to start our list price at 1.29. So that way, from what I've seen from the trend in the area, $200,000 over asking will help us reach our mark. But I also don't want to list too low, because if I list at 1.19, and I only get 200,000 above that, I might not hit my 1.5 target. So it's always important to start your target, reverse engineer it, look at what in the area, how much over asking are these products selling for? How much over asking are houses selling for? How much over asking are townhouses selling for? Typically for townhouses, from my experience, in the areas that I've looked at, they haven't sold more than 200,000 above asking, unless maybe it's luxury townhouses. Luxury townhouses perform a little bit different, and they perform closer to maybe detached houses. So these are all things that you should spend time to do your legwork before you list a product, price it, set a certain amount on offer, set a certain length on the offer dates. I like listing on Wednesdays and Thursdays. That way I can catch that weekend traffic, and that way I can be off the market by Tuesday, Wednesday. So um, in terms of if I'm going to be setting something up for bidding wars. Another thing that you might want to consider is if your place is tenanted. I mean, if your place is tenanted, typically, you need a 24-hour notice. So it might not be as advantageous for you to set an offer date with a tenant, because if the tenant takes 24 hours to book or to confirm, you're not going to get that frenzy and that rush and all that traffic coming in. So that's a good example of something that's maybe it's tenanted. You might not want to go to an offer date. You might just want to set your price. In the example I use, set your price at 1.5, be aggressive off the top, and just let the market kind of take its course over 30 to 60 days. Another thing is, maybe the house doesn't show well. So not a lot, but there are people that even in this kind of market where it's advantageous to want to have an offer date, but if the house doesn't show well, you're going to get a lot of low ball offers. So you might just want to set your price firm, regardless of the offer date strategy, because it might not be advantageous for what you're doing and the outcomes that you want to see. Also, take a look week over week. What's the week over week appreciation look like? Because typically what happens is in an area, what smart listing agents do is they don't compete with somebody else that has an offer date. They wait till that offer is done the next week, and then they will put theirs on the market to generate and to drive up the numbers more week over week. So if I see that houses that are being listed on the market in a certain area week over week, the price is going up by 25,000, then it's going to help me in terms of how I set my price and how I set my target as well. And as I mentioned, pay attention to the product types: condos, townhouses, stacked townhouses, bachelors, detached, freeholds. All those perform very differently when you have an offer date. Before we go on, any questions on this? Things that you want to do before listing, and kind of the homework you want to do before putting your clients or yours on the market to capture this crazy bidding war scenario. Any questions around this? No? Okay. Any objections, any comments? It's something that I might have said, could have been, what I'm saying is not like the gospel. So it's open to interpretation and to comments. I'm just really sharing my experience and the experience that I've kind of gone through with, some other agents. We have another call that we do the last Thursday of the month. And we get all the agents that are, that are performing really strongly. We have a mastermind and we discuss these things, and we kind of see, does this make sense before we share it here to the general group. So nothing I'm saying here is the gospel truth. I'm just giving you, examples of things that you could do, but, in this market, it's almost like anything sells. So you just got to make sure that you price it well so you maximize the dollar. So this is a listing of mine from a couple of weeks ago. This is a bachelor studio, about 500 square feet. I looked at comps week over week to see how they were performing. What I found was, on average, bachelors and one bedrooms in the area, their list price to their sold price was about $50,000 to $100,000 more. My target price was $500,000. So I priced it about $80,000 below what my target was. And then we were able to get an offer. We're able to get an offer firm, and we're at $500,000. Now, something else that happened with here was I elected to entertain preemptive offers. So that's another thing that, before listing, you want to have a conversation with your clients. Does it make sense for you to want to entertain preemptive offers, or do you not entertain preemptive offers at all, and you simply wait till the offer date to look at all the offers? Another option that you can put in your comments and your broker remarks is only strong preemptive offers will be entertained. Generally speaking, you want to wait to the offer date because you want the emotional, you want the emotional frenzy. You want people committed, willing to overpay, open their wallets. So it's in your best interest, in your client's best interest, generally speaking, to wait till the offer date, especially the more limited the product is. So it's like a detached, double garage, double driveway, 50 by 150 lot. That's really well done. Nice finishes, nice area. For a product like that, that's really rare. I probably will not entertain any offers until the offer date, because I know I'm going to maximize the dollars, and I'll probably have multiple rounds of offers to keep squeezing another 20, 40, 50, 100,000 out of potential buyers. So for the more rare the product, I'll say no preemptive offers should be entertained. But for this particular product, because it was a bachelor and it was small, it was entry, and it wasn't really like a lot of comps for me to go off. So even though I set an aggressive offer date, I made sure that I allowed for preemptive offers. And we actually sold this on a preemptive offer. We didn't wait till the offer date because we hit our mark. So the client was older, they didn't want to get greedy. And also we had also already made a commitment to buy something else. So they didn't want to play in that game. And that's why we elected to go with that strategy for this particular case. But that took months of research, and obviously, do your walkthroughs, get it ready to hit the market, professional photos, video tours, staging if necessary. signs, still, get your, even though this complex kind of looked a little bit weird, I hired, and you should all be hiring third-party companies to do your signages, to post your signs and all that stuff. So that way you can just focus on the activities that are important to generate income. Other things to consider before you are listing something with an offer date is how many rounds do you want to do? And if you're doing, it's always important to let individuals know to come with their final and their best offers. If you have 20 to 30 offers, it probably means that you were priced a little bit too low. And more than half of those offers are going to be like at the listed price. For some reason, people read the remarks and they come in on offer date, they waste their time, they waste their agent's time, and they submit an offer that is the list price. Now, that will make sense if the product is listed a little bit too aggressively. But for the most part, a lot of people I find just don't read and just don't do their homework. It's very important to, try to know how many offer rounds that you want to go into. Set the expectation that there will not be a guarantee for for another round. So their best and final should come now. Other considerations, offer any time, you want to consider that depending on the product, depending if you have, especially if you're the first to go into, into list in an area. So for example, if you're buying new construction, new construction, the first person who lists new construction after closing always loses, because predominantly, you're dealing with investors that are coming out of pre-construction. So you're always going to be competing against investors. And I think for new construction, if it's a new build and you're the first to go into market, it's rather than doing an offer date, because there's no comps for anybody to compare to, set an aggressive offer based on what your needs are, based on what your costs are. And I think that's a better strategy if you're dealing with, let's say, a new build that just registered and there's really no comps for it, and you're going to be the first person who's going to be creating that first comp for the area. Any questions around that? No? Okay. Either means I'm doing a really good job or everybody's completely lost. So I hope it's the first one.
It's the first one, Mike. Don't worry.
Seeing a lot of pre-inspection reports being created by sellers. Can you hear me?
No, we lost, like it was a long gap.
I have a booster, internet booster, but I'm not sure what's going on today.
I actually think it might be because we're both logged in to the same account.
Okay.
Would you be down to sign out and log in with your mic account?
Sure.
Only because mine is recording our chat right now too, or
So,
yeah.
okay.
Omar, hold on to that question. Mike's just gonna log out and come back in.
Okay, Tasha, I'll message you just in case I have a little bit of issues getting back on. Okay. So
Okay. Sorry, guys. Thank you. We don't ever often face any technical difficulties, so this is a first. But again, thank you for your patience. And Omar, he'll get to your question on how to deal with tenanted properties when he jumps back in.
Okay, so Omar had a question. What was the question? I'm not able to.
So he said, how should we deal with tenanted properties?
Tenanted properties? Get rid of the tenants first before listing a property. That's the easiest solution. Obviously, if the tenant is on a lease, they have the right to the property, but I'm going through that right now. And what I told my client is pay the client, pay the tenant 1 month, and let's get them out. So that way the tenant will have their last 2 months free, and those get the N11 signed, and we can move on to prepare the property for listing. If the tenant is, but if the tenant is on a contract, then there's really nothing you can do until the end of that term, unless you're doing it, unless you're selling to an investor who wants to take on a tenant. But even with that, then it's probably best that you do that exclusively, or you do that without an offer date. I hope that makes sense. Because tenants are just, it's just not going to show as well. And if your goal when you're doing offer dates is you want to maximize the dollars, so to do that, you want it vacant. I always recommend getting the tenant out, paying them the 1 month extra, because you're going to make $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 extra from having a place that's vacant, and we can show it every single anytime that we want without any person kind of getting in the way. So yeah, so those are my 2 cents on that. Disclosures, pre-list items. So pre-inspection reports. Do know that even though, because if you're representing buyers and you guys are going out to look at properties, and the buyer is very insistent about getting an inspection done, they technically could do an inspection for every house that they go and visit. Just make sure that they do it before the offer date. The challenge with that is it becomes very expensive to be able, $500 every house you're interested in looking at, doing an inspection is just, it wouldn't make sense. So it'd be great if the listing agent does have an inspection report prepared. Even if they do have an inspection report prepared, do know that those inspection reports are created for the favor of the seller. They're not created for the favor of the buyer. So I will still look at that inspection report with like skepticism, unless it's like a material defect and they have to disclose. But, even when I do my pre-inspection reports before listing, like there's stuff that we just, don't put on there, especially if it's not like material or structural, and it's not illegal for me to do it, then I just won't list it. Because again, I'm representing the seller, I'm not representing the buyer's interest. So do know that pre-inspection reports would be great to have them. If not, then you either have to expense it at every visit, or it's at your own risk. Reduced commissions. Typically, for me as a seller, I don't negotiate agents' commissions into the deals. I let them kind of handle that on their own, just because it complicates the matter. Because if somebody goes and says, hey, I want to see the 801, I want to see the form 801 because I believe my offer was stronger than this person's. And then on the 801, it shows that the offer is stronger, but then there's another schedule for reduced commissions that doesn't get shared. It's just going to create more problems for you. So I just, for the sake of it, just reduce commissions. I don't entertain it in my offer negotiations. I let the buyer and the buyer's agent kind of deal with that. Relationship to sellers, relationship to buyer, obviously have your disclosures in there, so that way, everything is disclosed. To preempt or not to register the offer on Broker Bay. My internet is still a little bit wonky. That's crazy. Okay, sorry about that, guys. So yeah, so make sure that they register the offers on Broker Bay. That way it just saves you the headache. And also what Broker Bay does that's great is it notifies everybody. So in terms of preempt, only preempt or only allow preempts when your product is not special, for lack of better words, or if there's a lot of options in the area, the more limited the supply, the more you should hold back until the offer date. And then make sure that everybody is registering the offers with the 801s, registering the offers with the 801s, so that way an automatic email shoots out to everybody whenever there's a registered offer, so you don't have to manually go and do it. So I always make sure, and you should always make sure that any buyer submitting an offer, they're registering it on Broker Bay. Closing, is a strong negotiation tactic that sellers care about. So always keep in mind that closing is a great tool that you should be using to negotiate. Try to get your deposits here with where possible, because especially when you have offer dates and you have somebody who just paid $300,000 above asking, they're probably not going to sleep well at night. So if they wake up in the morning and they don't submit that deposit, then you don't have consideration, which means you don't have a deal. So try to get deposits here with, even if it means that they're taking a picture beforehand and submitting it, because at least they've made the commitment to go and get a draft, and you have the deposits here with you. And then obviously we know as sellers, we don't want to see any conditions. So but again, if the condition is really just a status certificate and you haven't ordered the status certificate, then it's really on you, which brings us to another point. Make sure before your offer dates, you have status certificates on hand, because you don't want to tie up days because you're waiting for management to send you a status certificate for review. Okay, so moving on. So this is for when you're representing buyers, which a lot of us probably are representing more buyers than we are representing sellers today, because a lot of people, like, what's the rush to sell? Like, where are you gonna go after you sell? Especially a lot of people have done 40 to 50% on their properties over the last 2 years. A lot of people are refinancing, and I'm going to talk about that as well. What I feel in terms of everybody just refinancing, taking on more debt to buy more properties. As investors, it's great. As agents, not so great. So I'll talk about that at the very end. Now, before engaging with your clients, obviously you want to make sure they have a pre-approval done. Before anything, get a pre-approval done, so that way you know what is their bandwidth and how aggressive can you go. It's very important that they also know that, especially if they're a first-time home buyer, they're a little fish in a big pond. As disrespectful as that sounds, it is what it is. A lot of individuals today are getting the market by borrowing funds from their parents that have a lot of equity, especially if their parents have been in a property for 5-10 years. I mean, they're sitting on $1 million in equity. Most parents and most grandparents will take on more debt to help their kids and their grandkids secure a home and to secure a future. So when you go in, especially as a first-time home buyer with very limited funds, or a very tight mortgage pre-approval with no wiggle room or no extra equity, you're a little fish in a big pond. And in previous trainings, I've always said, I try to stay away from, when I represent buyers, I stay away from listings that have offer dates first. And I look at terminated listings, expired listings, listings in the area that are similar. I look at pre-construction, I look at assignment sales. I do not want to go and compete, especially when I'm only, I only have like a 20 to 50,000 bandwidth to be able to play with, so it's very important to know that. And also, if you're sellers or, if you're buyers, in order to win today, they're going to have to go with no finance condition, which means no appraisals are going to be performed on these properties by the time it firms up. So you have to keep that risk in the back of your mind always with your buyers. How aggressive are you going to push them to where it doesn't make sense, and then an appraisal comes back and the appraisal is short? Because I had this happen to me last year. Appraisal came back short. with an aggressive bid, but they had a finance condition because I wasn't, you know, my product was not very unique, you know, so, and also it was early in COVID still, there was a lot of uncertainty. Maybe maybe an offer day wasn't the best strategy for me, but that's the strategy that I decided to go with. An appraisal came back short, and I had to reduce my commissions 10,000 to make it work. And I was representing the seller. So know that there's a risk that appraisals will come back short, especially if, you know, tomorrow there's an announcement that, you know, that shocks the market. So always keep that in the back of your mind. Status review, get it to a lawyer right away, get a lawyer to review the status so that way you can go clean with no, that we can go clean with no status review condition. Inspections, I think we already covered that. It's a hit or miss. It's, you know, how much do you want to take on as a buyer paying for inspection reports across all these properties? I think most buyers today understand that they're going to overpay today, but in 3 months, they're going to be in the money. Just at the pace of the market, and especially like if you're looking at freehold products, you might overpay today, but in 3 months, you're going to be in the money. And that's part of the mindset that I prepare buyers with, to make sure that, A, I'm not wasting my time because I don't compete much in biddings. But if I'm going to be competing in bidding wars, I need to make sure that, you know, we're going to compete and compete strong. How much over our MPA can you afford to go? Which is, again, a conversation you need to have with your buyers. If your pre-approval is set at 700,000, then, you know, do you have extra funds you can borrow elsewhere? Family, friends, you know, is there extra funds we can get elsewhere? Because especially if there's a chance that this thing is listed for 599, it's probably going to go over 700,000. So it might go up to 750,000. So you have an extra 50,000 we can come up with between now and closing, which is another thing that is important for you to do. If you need a little bit of time to get the money together, make sure the appraisal can come back strong, try to get a further closing date. Try to get a closing date that 90 days plus, because usually within 90 days, by the time you come to get your mortgage, the numbers in the area have changed, usually for the better. So even if you do overpay, you know, try to get a long closing date, 90 days, 120 days, if possible, because that's going to help you, you know, to, you know, close that gap in terms of how short you might be. And then the other way to look at it is, you know, be the big fish in a small pond. So if you have a $700,000 pre-approval and you want to look at two bedroom products, you know, there's a good chance you're going to lose every single bid that you go into. But you might want to go into a 1+ den product instead of a 2-bed product, because there's a good chance that you're now a big fish with a bigger pre-approval in a smaller pond. So you have a better chance of winning. Sometimes with clients, I have, like, for example, when I'm representing builders typically, you know, they know what their ARVs are, what their what do you call it, the value of the asset after renovations. So they know what that marker is, so they can't go over that mark. So usually with builders, they usually wait until the last 30 minutes with me, at least, when offers start coming in, before they want to submit an offer, because it's not going to make sense. So usually when I know when I'm representing builders, if there's 5 offers or less, then we're going to go and we're going to compete. If there's more than 5 offers, we're probably going to walk away from it, because, you know, we have very tight constraints that we need to work within. And even when you're representing buyers in general, if there's more than 5 offers that you're seeing being registered, you need to have a phone call with your clients and to let them know that, hey, you know, we probably need to push this a little bit on the aggressive end to be able to win. And then the alternative, if you don't want to compete in bidding wars, is, you know, to look at expired and terminated listings. Like right now, I'm looking at a property in my area that they're probably at least $500,000 overpriced minimum. So all I'm doing is I'm following up with the agent every week, every few days, to kind of just see, hey, you know what? They have an offer date on Friday, I believe. So which is tomorrow. So after tomorrow, I'm just gonna have my eyes on that listing and see what they do in terms of strategy, because they might terminate it and they might say, you know what, we were a little bit too aggressive. We're gonna come back in 3 months. So I might take that opportunity now to go with a client, put an offer, and put conditions now, because I'm not competing with anybody and nobody's looking at it and it's still fresh off the press. When I'm looking at terminated listings or expired listings, I typically don't look more than 60 days, because I find more than 60 days, the sellers have emotionally checked out. So, 30 to 60 days is a good sweet spot of listings that have just terminated, because, they might still be emotionally invested to want to sell this property. Any questions on this before I move on? No? Okay. So here's a case study. So that the same client that we sold her property for 500,000 in that previous case study, a very typical question that individuals have is, should I sell before I buy? Or should I buy before I sell? So the rule of thumb for me is you should always sell before you buy, because that way you kind of know your numbers, you know how much capital you're playing with, and you know exactly what you can afford and so forth. Recently, depending on the clients, I usually I'm now more so I'm opting to buy before we sell. And the reason why I'm opting to buy before we sell is because depending on the product, like for example, if I'm looking at houses freehold in, let's say, Port Credit, Mississauga, or that product is growing by $20,000 a week. So if I'm going to sell first a product before I buy, by the time I sell, by the time it's firm, I probably have to pay an extra $50,000 to $100,000 on that same exact product that I looked at a month earlier. So what I'm opting to do now, it's still risky, and I have that conversation with clients. The risk is obviously you buy and then you can't sell at the number that you want to sell at. So I'm opting now more so to buy first, so that way I can secure the price, and then if I'm confident enough with my product that I'm selling, and I've done my homework, then I'm confident especially if I'm confident it's going to sell within 10 days, there's no fear in me buying first before I sell. Does that make sense? I know that's a little bit, that might be a little bit complicated, and you probably should have a question or two around that, because a year ago I was teaching the complete opposite. So because supply is so limited and competition is so aggressive, so for this product, for example, we won the bid. There was only 3 offers, so which is great for us, because I knew 3 offers is below 5, which is my sweet spot that I like to be in. Was listed for 546,000. I was seeing that condos in the area were selling about $100,000 over asking. So initially we came in at 650,000. But then before we submitted the offer, I called the client and I said, look, I have a feeling everybody's going to be offering 650,000. I know your pre-approval is 640,000, and I've already stretched you 10,000. I'm going to stretch you another 5,000 because the difference for you is $20 a month. But if we wait another week to look for something else, you won't be able to afford a 1-bedroom plus den with 2 washrooms around the Mississauga Square One area. But I believe that by the time she bought it and by the time we sold her property, she would be in the money. And today, really 2 weeks after, the same exact products are selling for over 700,000. So that's an example of, if I had waited for us to sell first to come and buy this product, we would have to pay an extra $50,000 to get the same product, or we would have to go down in terms of what we're looking at. So we probably couldn't afford a 1+den with 2 wash anymore. We would have to go and compete with 1-bedrooms to be able to have a strong position. So I pushed her an extra 15,000 over her pre-approval, but I was super confident that, and I was also communicating with the mortgage broker to know what is the minimum I need to sell her place for it to make sense. And they told me the minimum is 480,000. So I knew I could get at least 500,000 for the sale of her property, which we did, which we barely did, to be honest. We didn't really hit the mark, but we barely did. And that allowed her to secure. And it made sense in this scenario to buy first before you sell. It might not make sense in every scenario. And there is risk, because if she can't sell at the marker that she needs to sell at, she will lose her deposit that she made on this purchase. So have that conversation, be very transparent, give them the pros and cons, and ultimately let the client make the decision. And that's it. So thank you for joining. I'm going to leave room for questions, and then I'm going to make one last point before I leave you guys to enjoy the rest of your Thursday afternoon. Any other questions? No? Okay. So we all know that rates are going up, and rates are going up apparently 5 times before the end of the year, right? So I personally don't think so. That's just my opinion, simply because people forget that it's not just residential homeowners or prospective real estate buyers that depend on low interest rates. It's also every major employer in Canada. They run a lot of their operations, expenses, and businesses on borrowing funds and working capital from the government at these low rates. The announcement of rates potentially going up led to a company, what company was it? Shopify. Shopify is the biggest company in Canada, for those of you that might not know. And then the second biggest company is RBC Bank. So Shopify, just from the announcement of rates going up, Shopify is down, I believe, from like in the last 2 weeks, they're down something like close to 20% in terms of their stock performance. Now, being the biggest company in Canada, that has more of a devastating effect, because that directly correlates to jobs, right? If companies stocks starts to underperform and people are dumping, it's going to lead to a lot of layoffs, which is ultimately going to lead to recessions, which will ultimately lead to housing corrections, as people like to say. So, housing is not going to start correcting from interest rates going up. Interest rates going up is going to reduce demand, but job losses will have a direct impact on terms of what's going to happen to the job market. So the Bank of Canada knows this. So they're not just going to increase rates as aggressively as they want to, just because the economy is still fragile and it's still COVID. So with that being said, the conversation I'm having with all my clients, I represent quite a bit of investors, is everybody needs to move up in category. So if you own a 1-bedroom today, you need to move up to a 1+den, to a 2-bedroom. If you own a 2-bedroom, you need to move to a townhouse, to a stacked townhouse. If you own a townhouse, you need to move to getting a bigger product like a semi or detached, for several reasons. Number one, the better the product category, the better it's going to perform over time. So the rate of increase and the rate of performance you're going to get from a townhouse today is going to be better than a condo, because people want space. So if you're sitting on 150,000 in equity in your condo, as an investor, it's in your best interest to refinance, take another 50,000 out of it, to be able to maybe buy something pre-construction that has really, really good terms, because you can manage the deposit. But A, you're carrying on more debt. B, we don't know if your income will be able to qualify to get the mortgage when it's time for you to close on that pre-construction, for example. And you're at a product that it is going to grow, but it's not going to grow as aggressively, and it's not going to grow as fast. So the conversation I'm having now with investors is it's time to dump and sell that 1 bedroom condo, that 1+den condo, that bachelor condo, even that 2 bedroom condo. And because if you have enough equity in there, then you should be able to do 2 to 3 different things, which is what I've always done in the past. I've always dumped, like I dumped all my 1 bedroom condos in 2017, and I leveled up to buy stacked townhouses and townhouses. And over the next 3 years, I'm going to potentially look at selling all the stacked townhouses and townhouses if it will allow me to grow and be able to hold on to townhouses and detach if it makes sense, and affordability and all that stuff. Investors always have this thing that they want to grow their portfolios. They want to grow their portfolios, which is good, and it's a good mindset to have. But also it's like growing your portfolio at what risk and at what cost. Sometimes it's important to take a step back to take 2 steps forward. So for you to, you might have 3 properties today, but if there's no equity in any of those properties whatsoever, because you've taken out all the juice through refinances and so forth, and now you have to carry these 3 properties at their top and highest price point, and then something goes wrong in the economy, like a job loss or a correction of any sort, because it's going to happen with businesses first before it happens with real estate. And businesses will have a direct impact on real estate. Real estate won't have a direct impact on anything else, really. It will just slow down demand. So there's a risk element of this time that we're going into, of people being over leveraged and carrying a lot of debt, wanting to be real estate investors, wanting to carry real estate portfolios, but they have no equity in it. I'd rather have 1 or 2 properties with over $1 million in equity in it than have 4 to 5 properties and all at the maximum level, and there's no juice in it, and I can't do anything, pull anything out, and if something goes wrong, then like everything's going to crumble, and then there's going to be pure fire cells going on. I think that's important conversations to start having with your clients. It's going to help them get into a better performing product, but B, it's going to create multiple opportunities. It's going to create multiple opportunities for yourselves as agents to be able to create more listings. So in the last, from September till now, I've had this conversation with 5 clients. 3 have agreed to do it. Out of those 3 that have agreed to do it, it's going to create about 10 listings. It's going to create about 10 transactions for myself. I didn't do anything special. I didn't go out and market and door knock. And, I just took active people that were in the market. I educated them as to why it makes sense to exit in this product. So I'll make a sell commission. And then from their profits, we're going to go and buy 2 to 3 pre-constructions, or maybe some assignment sales, or maybe do a resell as well. But from one client, I'm going to be able to create 4 different transactions out of it. And I'm working on 3 clients, 3 are on board, 2 more, I still need to have the conversation with them. But you can do this year over year. Part of the reason why I decided to get my license is I figured that out as almost like a real estate hack by accident. Because at the time, Isaac was my agent. And the only thing I used to buy, my family used to buy, was pre-constructions. So I would buy a pre-construction from Isaac. There'll be a commission paid out. And then 2 years later, he'll call me and say, Mike, you have 2 of these, let's dump one and let's do something else. And I'll say, okay, this makes sense. So I'll assign one, and guess who my agent was? My agent was Isaac. So Isaac will make the commission again. And if Isaac was bringing the buyer, he'd make another commission again. And that buyer that Isaac would bring in 2 years would also want to sell the property because they want to move up, because they've also made equity. And in 2 years, they'd be selling. And one day I sat down and I did the math, because at this point I had maybe assigned 2 to 3 properties. I purchased, my family had purchased quite a bit. And I said, man, Isaac is making a killing just off of me. And if I can learn to hack this system and manage my clients, manage them effectively, tell them where to grow and how to grow, I never have to market in my life and I'll always have a pool of people ready to sell, ready to buy, ready to sell, ready to buy. And, and I can grow my business organically because it's competitive out there. There's 50,000 agents. There's, unless you're in a niche, it's very, very competitive to go into somewhere where a listing agent is someone's willing to take 1%, and you're not, we don't operate less than, I don't think we operate less than 1%, right, Tasha? I think that's our break-in, like our
Yeah,
minimum.
we don't operate less than one. Yeah.
So if you're operating less than 1%, part of that, and if it's going into what the brokerage fees are, part of that is going to come out of your commissions because the brokerage doesn't take less than 1%. So it's very important to, position your clients well, educate your clients well, have the right mindset, let them know that yes, there's uncertainty in this fear, and this might be a time where it's important to be more cash heavy than to be more asset heavy. And be more cash heavy today to be more asset heavy in the future. So yes, it's a step backward right now, but it's going to position you to grow. It's going to be able to help you grow more effectively. But if you're squeezing out, like I have clients right now, maxing out lines of credits, maxing out credit cards, maxing out refinances, and then going on mat leave right after. And I'm trying to have this conversation with them to say, I don't care that the lender has approved you to be able to carry all this, but because your mat leave hasn't kicked in yet, and I'm just talking like specific to the scenario that I'm literally, as soon as this call is done, I have to jump on a call with this client because I'm trying to convince her, let go of one, we're going to make a move towards something that's greater, which we already did because we already bought first. And now, but she doesn't want to sell even though we bought, and she's just going to be carrying a lot of debt while going on mat leave. And it's very risky at the same time as well. Ultimately, the client gets to do whatever the client wants to do. But it's important to have that conversation because in the future, if you're going telling your clients refinance, and let's buy more, at some point, someone has to service the debt. So at some point, someone needs to service the debt. And if something does correct, are they, do they have enough equity behind them to be able to service that debt in case something goes wrong? So that's it for today. Any questions on the items that I just spoke about? No? Okay, perfect. So that's it for today. We are, what is it now? Oh, next month we're going to be talking about prospecting. Just to kind of give you guys, different ways you should be looking at prospecting, how to prospect as well. I know some of you have different roles and you wear multiple hats, whether in your traditional businesses or in your jobs, and you don't want to confuse your audiences or upset your managers and your directors. So we can have a conversation offline as to how you can do that and still have a presence online. Other than that, have a great week. Happy selling. Have a great rest of the month. If you have questions, reach out to me, and we will connect. And send your photos to Natasha if you haven't done so yet.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay. All right, guys. We'll talk soon. Have a good one.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Bye-bye.
Bye.